Hello and welcome to a new season of the Storied Arcs podcast. I am your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today we are setting up our new series, which will be the lightest legwork. We'll see how much mileage Alex and I end up getting out of this anyway. But we'll be discussing the Fade Out from Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and Elizabeth Breitweiser, all of whom we've covered, including Image Comics and specifically Brubaker Phillips' relationship to Image Comics in our Kill or Be Kill Zero. We talked briefly to catch up on Brubaker 2 years ago when we did Velvet. And so
Steve Epting, yeah.
We're going to go through the pitch. You know, one of my normal questions in a zero is asking, you know, how you came across a book. I think I already know in this case. It was probably already on your auto pool list because of the creators.
Well, no, this book actually was one of the first that, because my relationship to Brubaker and Phillips goes back to around this era. I had not been reading their stuff previously. This is right when the Fade Out came out. This might have been one of the first books I read by them that I knew was Brubaker Phillips, you know, as opposed to reading something and being like, oh, that was cool. And then finding out later, oh, wow, I really like those guys. This is one of the first books that I think, it might have been the first book that I absolutely knew and recognized both those names, and I recognized them as a team, you know? And I think from here, reading this book, then going back and reading stuff like the earlier stuff like Criminal, Fatale, which came right before this, and then right after this, of course, was Kill or Be Killed, which we already talked about. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the start of when these two guys become my favorite creative team in comics currently. You know, just like that, anything these guys put out, I'm in for. So yeah, it's interesting to, you know, we obviously talked about a handful of creators that we've returned to a number of times on this show, but this is the first time we've gone back to the exact same creative team again, you know, although I guess we did a little bit with Joyride and Hacktivist, the way that those kind of synced up there.
True. Yeah. I mean, those weren't separated by years. They were,
they weren't, but
you know, I guess
going back
the same
to back
thing
there,
being with, when we went into the Good Asian
out of
Defenki.
That was Defenki, out of Outpost Zero. But yeah, going back to the exact same team again, you know, in a little bit a slightly earlier time in their publication history. Not that it matters too much for Brubaker and Phillips. I think these guys got into a groove, you know, years before, working on things like Sleeper, on Criminal, and all these other things that came before. Because at this point in time, you know, right at this time, they had just signed an exclusive deal with Image, the first ever creator exclusive deal with Image. So they were at a point already where Image was like, hey, if you guys want to publish a book, you can do it. You don't have to pitch anybody. You just come to us and say, this is the book we're going to do. And I believe this book here, The Fade Out, was the first book that was published new under that deal. Because I believe that deal was figured out and kind of worked, the details were worked through as they were finishing up Fatale in 2012, 2013, 2014, something like that. And then they announced this book when issue 1 comes out in August of 2014, as they say, you know, I think they announced this book and their exclusive deal at the same time, that in the next 5 years that we, you know, Image has first look and basically they can post whatever they want. No one says, you know, they don't have to pitch anyone at Image. It's just, you guys want to make a book, go do it. And this is the first one they did with that. Which I think is actually kind of interesting to think about in terms of the cachet that they had built up, that Brubaker and Phillips had built up.
Well, I was going to ask, how many times do you think you have to go into the pitch room and have everyone look around the table and say no notes before they just say, like, yeah, these guys season pass?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. That is what Image did, though, right? For Image to give an exclusive deal to creators, that is season pass, or at least a 5-year pass. They're saying any book you bring here, we're going to publish. You know, like we got, you know, no notes, no pitch. You just guys go do it. So they had already built up enough work there for them to say, yeah, have at it, which I think is, I mean, it's got to be like the ultimate way to work, especially when you have a creative team that like this team is so in sync that, you know, I'm sure I, I can only imagine what like their discussions are when they're figuring out an idea. If it's just like one of them saying like an offhand thing, oh, would be cool if we had a story like this, and then kind of ideas go back and forth, and you know, out of nowhere, boom, we got 12 issues of something, we got 18 issues of something, you know, we've got 40 issues of Criminal or something like that, you know, and just to know that these guys keep working together and have been working together since. I mean, since we talked about them last during Killer Be Killed, I mean, they're still pumping out books mostly in the original graphic novel sense. I'm sure at that point we talked about the Reckless books, which is a series of 5 connected-ish, but kind of serialized original graphic novels. They did a book called Houses of the Unholy, Where the Body Was. They put out a new criminal OGN called The Knives. And later this year, they've got, well, they put out also a giant-sized Criminal #1, like an oversized floppy, which is like it's a setup for another criminal book they got coming out later this year, called 5 Gears in Reverse, which is kind of they're going back to Criminal now because they just been working on the first season of the Criminal TV show, the adaptation that's coming to Prime Video, allegedly sometime this year, 2026. It doesn't have a date yet.
It may even release before it's canceled.
Yeah,
we'll see from Amazon.
Who knows? But it somehow doesn't have a date yet, even though I believe it's all been done and wrapped and shot. It's got a pretty insane cast. I'm really looking forward to it, not just because I love the material, but like the people involved with it seem pretty great. So because of that, because of anticipation and hype for that, or to build that for the show, Brubaker and Phillips have kind of gone back into the Criminal world, which again, personally, I love, is Criminal being my second favorite comic series of all time. Anytime I get any more stories in that, given the world they built there, that's a story that stands at this point 4 generations of people involved with this Criminal family. Any story set in any part of that time period with any of those characters is always great. So these guys, they keep putting the work in. Every 6 to 8 months, it's going to be like, oh, look at that. There's a new Brubaker Phillips OGN out. Is it connected to something else that they've already done, or is it a standalone thing? Doesn't matter. It's going to be out there, and it's going to be great. It's going to be phenomenal. So, I'm just so glad these guys keep working on it. And the Fade Out here was an early work for me, I think, to really show kind of what their tone and what their feel and what their vibe was as a creative team together.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very, very easy to get complacent or lazy, or honestly, I would kind of expect something like in the writing, that would have come out since then, where you kind of read it and say, I kind of wish they'd maybe worked with an editor there, maybe could have tightened this up, this or this up. But I think they functionally are an editorial team between the two of them.
I can see it, definitely see that.
I think the collaboration is that tight.
I think so. And I think you said the right word there, complacency. There's an idea that you're right. After a certain amount of time, it's not that you don't want to, it's not that you want to stop working with someone, but it's natural to get to the point where you're like, hey man, like, we've done incredible work in the past, and maybe we'll do incredible work in the future, but like right now, let's just kind of take a break, maybe, work with other people, kind of re-energize and mix it up a little bit, and which is stuff like that's totally natural, especially in comics. It's always a big deal. Like, hey, when this writer and this artist, hey, the team from that book 15 years ago, they're back with a new story. It's like, oh, great big fanfare. These guys just don't hit that wall. They just keep churning out stuff together. They just know that they're able to keep that energy up, to use that term, the terminology. They're able just to keep the intensity. Be like, yeah, here's the next book, and there's not going to be a drop in quality. We're going to find a way to to just kind of keep moving this train forward here and keep pushing ourselves, to not fall back and do the same thing over and over again, which I think is really incredible, especially with a book like Criminal, when they can go back to this world over and over and over again and find ways to make it feel fresh and new, even though we're talking about characters whose fates you may already know because there's such a timeline associated with the internal universe of Criminal. Anytime they go back and go quote unquote back in time or forward in time or anything like that, they still find a way to make it engaging and make it worthwhile. And it doesn't just feel like an academic exercise of, oh, we're revisiting this again. Every time they go back to it, they bring a new, fresh spark to it.
I think the other thing that I would want to identify is that the reason I think if you're the Image executive pitching this deal, it would be a dangerous thing to give to someone who like just got their break in comics, even if they were batting 1,000, they're 5 years in.
Yes. Yeah.
But Brubaker,
he'd been in the trenches for
92, Low Life was self-published, and you go like 92, 02, 20, or 2012, that's 20 years in the industry, and then it's another 4 or 5 years before we're talking about this deal. So 25 years in, the person has the drive. It's not going to drive that, and you're not paying them unless they're making stuff.
Well, you're just
it's not like a retainer deal where you're paying them, and if they churn stuff out, you also get that. They still have to work to get paid. You just get the work.
It's just it's a blind green light. It just, say, hey, you guys want to make something? Go do it. Do you guys, and it's even, Sean Phillips has, been working since the late 90s there. So he's only a handful of years less in the industry from the US side. I don't know how long he was working over in the UK, but both these guys had been in the trenches long enough before they started working together, and working other places that there were not a whole lot of safer bets at the time for a company like Image to hand out this exclusive contract to. It's one of those things that like, it's shocking. Like, wow, Image, creator sending out an exclusive contract. That initially is shocking, and then when you realize who it is, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
It's like it's immediately shocking. Then like, oh no, yeah, of course, if you're gonna give it to anybody, you're gonna give it to these guys. And again, the fact that they come out with this like Hollywood noir, golden age of Hollywood, post-war, murder mystery kind of thing story, I think is so great because this book is so much on like a vibe and feel. Not that. Because it's always interesting to me when Brubaker and Phillips go into like a period setting. Like Criminal is ostensibly a contemporary book. It moves through time because it covers so much space there across its timeline, but it's essentially a contemporary book. Reckless was set in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Southern California. So there's a specific vibe to that book. Fatale, very similar, kind of moving through time. But this one here being in them doing a noir story about making a noir movie.
Right.
It's like there's a couple levels of meta here in terms of they're not applying the noir canvas to a superhero story or a crime story or a horror story or anything like that. Like they're applying film noir to film noir,
Right.
They're doing all that together there. And so, I think this book is super fun that way. We should say too, I think I said it on top. Did I mention 12 issues? It's I don't know.
No,
if
we haven't talked about the actual book itself yet, which is ostensibly the only thing we needed to do.
Let's get into that here. So the fade out from Image Comics. We did mention that part. We got that far at least, I believe, right?
And Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips.
And Betty Brightweiser. It was 12 issues, ran from August 2014 to January 2016. It's collected initially in 3 trade paperbacks, 3 volumes, which is how we'll be covering it. Each volume is 4 issues, 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12. There's also a beautiful deluxe hardcover, which came out in October 2016, and then finally after that there was the complete collection, which is a paperback compendium that came out in November 2018. So there are multiple ways you can get this. You can find these issues everywhere. I want to say. Let me, before I fully say that, I want to say these issues are slightly larger. Um, I think they're as opposed to your regular like 22, 24 page monthly from like a Marvel or DC or anything like that. These are like 36 pages long. So they're slightly longer. If you have um the single issues, there are essays in the back, kind of, you know, um, essays about this time in Hollywood, and the era around it. So that Brubaker and Phillips love to throw extra stuff into the single issues. That's only in the single issues. Like if you get the trades, you get all the story, obviously, but you don't get any of the back matter. So if wanting to get into some of this extra material and the larger, I don't know, influences or like similar reading material, they put all that stuff into the single issue, which is super super great to see. But they are slightly oversized, slightly longer issues, which is, these guys, they're out here putting the work in. But you can get them in multiple ways, whether it is single issue, the trades, the hard cover collection, or the soft cover collection. It's out there. Their stuff stays in print one way or another.
Yeah. Well, and I know you're a big backup matter guy, like especially
Yeah.
for single issues. Like
Yeah.
it is such a value add. To me, I only check it out from certain writers. Like Saga, I'm always going to read the letters, that Brian K. Vaughan writes. I started paying attention to it in Brubaker Phillips. Of course, when I started following Brubaker Phillips, they switched to more of the OGN format
Yeah.
rather than single issues. So there's limited scope on that for me. And by the way, I noticed I have a variant for the Fade Out issue 1. That's a Chip Zdarsky variant,
The Dark
and
Strand. Yeah,
and
that's a great one.
they're not big on variants normally,
They really
unless it's a
aren't.
reprint.
Yeah. Unless it's either a second or third print or like an image first, which I think that's an image call if they put out an image first one. But yeah, they really don't do. There is a Chip Zdarsky variant, which is great. There's also one by Jamie McKelvey. People may know from his collaborations with Kieran Gillen, which is really great. And there's also a really great magazine size reprint or printing of the first issue. It has an old school Hollywood kind of like Look magazine style cover, and it's oversized issue. So it is reformatted to fit on the magazine style
That's
page,
cool.
which is the single issue, the normal single issue page. So it is very very cool. They've done this magazine thing style before a couple times. They did it they did 2 special issues of Criminal after the initial series ended. They did a Christmas special and a 10th anniversary special, and both of those got old school comic covers. Like one's like a Conan, a Savage Sword of Conan parody, and one is like a Werewolf by Night parody. They've done things like that, which are like total special printings and great covers by Sean Phillips. But yeah, you're right. Outside of a couple of things here and there, not big on the variant covers. So the fact that like Chip has one, and Jamie McKelvey has one, which at the time, when those were coming out, I mean, I want to say right at the time, people would have known them for Zdarsky would have been known for mostly sex criminals, probably, and McKelvey would have been Wicked and Divine, probably at that time.
Yeah.
So they would have been guys that at that point McKelvey may have also done like New Avengers with Kieran Gillen. So, but they
Oh,
would have been names, been like, oh
yeah.
wow, this is great. This is great to see. And both those covers are great too. I have that Chip one too somewhere as well. But if I could find that McKelvey cover, that'd be cool too, because I love his stuff.
Yeah, it's just one of those books where like I love it, but I would not bother getting it signed by Chip because there's so much other stuff at this point, unless I happen to have that Fade Out #1 signed by Brubaker and Phillips, and Chip was the missing piece, and then it'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, see,
Um,
that's interesting. For me, I would get that cover only signed by Chip because it's his art. And if I ever got to meet Brubaker and Phillips, and they are the #1 people whom I've never met at a show ever, I have some signed book plates from them, but that comes from the publisher. I never met them in a show.
right.
If I ever met them, I would probably take that magazine style, the magazine version #1, and have them
Oh
sign
yeah, yeah.
that. That would be the thing from the Fade Out because I'd have to bring something from every single series.
Yeah.
I would be that guy for these guys, and I'm fully aware of that. I'm conscious of that. But for the Fade Out, I think I would bring the magazine special #1 and have them do that. But with that Zdarsky one, I would only have Chip sign that because he's the artist on that. That's one of the differences between how you and I see
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
signed comics in that way. Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah. Okay. Should we get into the synopsis?
yeah, yeah.
By the way, I think the only way I came into this book was talking to you at the shop, just you being like Brubaker Phillips, Brubaker Phillips, Brubaker Phillips. And I think I stumbled across the first trade, perhaps before the whole thing was out.
I was going to say,
And
so if that would have been early in the shop, that would have been
I mean, I
2015,
moved back.
2016, right?
I guess
When did you?
I moved back to Cincinnati in 2017, and that's
Okay,
when I
okay,
started going to the same
okay,
shop as you, January 2017.
okay.
So certainly at least one of the trades would have been out by then.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
we were like
Well,
the Wednesday noon crowd, so I think I
yeah.
met you pretty early on.
The whole
Whether I
thing
knew
would have,
your name or not, I was still taking your
yeah, yeah.
recommendations.
The whole thing would have been out then, but yeah. So so it would have been probably sometime that year. So yeah, the the deluxe hardcover, all the trades would have been out by then because the final issue came out January 2016. So all the trades would have been out
Oh
by
yeah,
then.
yeah.
So and you know what? The shop also used to have at the old place.
Which is where I'm talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It used to have a whole because it had so much extra space. They used to have large shelves devoted to creatives and creative teams. Like you could walk over and there would be a
yeah,
Lemire shelf, there would be a Scott Snyder shelf, and there would be a Brubaker shelf. And I'm sure that's what it was. We probably were over there, and I probably mentioned something like, "Hey, you know what? Brubaker here. This is a guy you want to read," and that they would have done that. Yeah, because there would have been an early Tom King shelf. There would have been a Bendis shelf and things like that. Yeah, they had one of those alcoves like that was all creators, and so that would have made sense at that point if I would have pointed out, hey, you know what? If you've never read Ed Brubaker with this guy Sean Phillips, you should read all of his books, all of their books.
yeah. And so I mostly have since then. Although
Sure.
I would say I like have like they're on the pool list for me. Like I've acquired a lot of the rec list, but I only read the first or second one. So like, but I read enough to know like I want all of these on the shelf, and I'm going to read them eventually.
Yeah, yeah,
The trick is Reckless is just not a great discussion book for this podcast, so it will probably
yeah,
never come up here,
yeah,
even though it's a great book.
yeah.
Whereas this one, it's an era that we haven't really had a chance to like chat about, maybe a little bit through like The Good Asian, but that was it was noir, but it wasn't like golden age of
Well,
Hollywood.
I think yeah, the lore here is the specific idea that it's being set in Hollywood. It's in
Yeah.
LA. It's this time that is really would you say that is like overtly glamorized and valorized but also demonized? Like it is both like overexposed and overrated and also maybe like underexposed and underrated in that it's hard to tell at this point what because we're so far from it now that are the depictions that we see of it, is that how it actually was or is that how is it remembered, you know?
Yeah, well, like
And
one
there's a
I think
mix
of
of fact and
is
fiction there.
I think of like The Rocketeer, where
Yeah,
what Timothy Dalton's character Neville Sinclair, the
yeah, yeah.
underground Nazi, which is
Yeah.
exactly it ties into like with the whole Blacklist era
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
type stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the rap that I have for it now is that it's 10 out of 10 vibes, like that era of Hollywood,
That-
but insanely racist, misogynistic, like
oh
all
yeah,
the
it's terrible.
problems,
Yeah,
all the problems it could have, it
yeah,
has. Um, but still like cool hats, men in trench coats, everyone
yeah,
smoking
yeah,
cigarettes,
yeah.
uh, like
I
the cool
yeah.
cars.
I
Um,
think about the movie LA Confidential. When that came out, it
oh
was
yeah,
like
yeah.
this movie is so great because look how slick it is. Look how cool everything is there. And there's a party that's like, is that what it was, or is that what we think it is now? Is that how we've romanticized it now? You know, and I don't know. I'm not here to say. I think you're right, though. I think we're at a point now where it's just if you set it in that time period, in this place, it's all about mood and vibes, and you can get away if things look right. If they look the way that we think they're supposed to look, you can get away with a lot of stuff here.
But it's been almost a decade since I read The Fade Out, but my recollection is Sean Phillips nails the look and the aesthetic,
yeah,
but Ed Brubaker gives us like characters that represent kind of the unvarnished. Like the characters all think of, especially like the male characters, think of themselves the way they're supposed to. Like they think they're cool, they think they're suave and trendy or whatever. Not great to be a woman or a minority in the story, and there
yeah,
are women and minorities in this story.
yeah.
And I think
Yes,
in that way he like preserves all of the good vibes while also not letting them get away with everything they've gotten away with in the past.
I would say yeah. There is and I believe Brubaker grew up in Southern California, in because in maybe not in Hollywood area, but like a lot of that was informed when what kind of goes into some of the setting of Reckless in the 60s and 70s and all that stuff like that. So, and this is an era, and this is a time that I think he's interested in. And obviously, again, the idea that these guys put a noir bent on everything they do. And so to set a story now in this time period where that we associate most strongly with noir film, right?
Right.
When you say that, everything looks like we're going to see on the page here. This is what people think about. This is the vibe that permeates the rest of the stuff that these guys do. And so setting a book here in late 1940s Hollywood, yeah, it it was a good choice. I'll put it that way. It's a good choice for these guys. This is the right path for them to go down. The type of story. I do feel like also this is the kind of story that if these guys hadn't done it, people would ask them, "Hey, why don't you do a story about like post-war Hollywood?"
Yeah.
Like because it feels so perfect for their aesthetic. So like if they hadn't done it, this feels like a story they should have done already.
Yeah. Shall we do the synopsis?
Yeah.
Um,
And which one are you reading here? Because there's a number, given all the publications that we talked about, the different ways you can find this book. There are a number of different synopses from Image, depending on what version or what book you pick up. So
yeah, this is from the complete collection. I would call it a compendium, but I
it
think
is,
12
yeah.
issues is too small to call a compendium, whatever.
Well, I
Um,
think in my mind, compendium is a complete collection paperback. Compendium equals paperback.
well, compendium to me means paperback omni. And because there are
Well,
compendium part ones and twos, so like it doesn't
yes,
necessarily mean complete.
fair, and that is true. But omnibus to me just means like this is everything you have, whether it's one
Omni
volume or two
means
volumes, three
this is
volumes.
what we could fit in the binding.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
compendium is often the paperback version of that. But
Yes,
I've become, I've not purchased an Omni in years. Great on the shelf, not great to read. Compendiums I like.
you like
And this
the
one
slightly larger, almost brickish
I do.
paperback. Yeah,
There's
you do
something
like that.
magical about just plopping down on the couch and knowing
Yeah,
like I could tear through volume one and I don't have to get up again. Like
yeah,
I could just keep going.
yeah.
Uh,
And this one that's at 12 issues,
360
30.
pages.
So that so you're looking at 30 pages of story. So I think when I mentioned that the single issue was 36 pages, look at the best 6 pages of some of the back matter stuff there. So 30 pages of story across 12 issues. It's a nice size, and whatever format you have this book in on a bookshelf, it's going to look pretty good.
Yeah. Uh, for reference, though, the biggest paperback I've ever dealt with was the 1,400 page Saga Compendium 1,
Yeah.
and I loved it. Like, I basically read it in like two sittings. I mean, two very long
Well,
pandemic
long
sittings.
sittings. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, at
but
that
like,
point,
I
it's
was
hard to
laying in
put.
bed, like
Yeah.
face down, like belly down, with it like open across
Oh,
where my pillow would be,
oh, oh.
and it was just great. I was like, just turn, 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 not getting up, not going to the bathroom, nothing.
For a long time, that's how I would read anything at all. And then I got to the point when I would do that, and then my back wouldn't work the next day. So can't read
Well,
like that
yeah,
anymore.
I'm not saying there aren't trade-offs, but uh, I'm not saying my back does work after I do that.
Okay. All right.
But
Fair. All
man,
right.
it's cozy.
Yeah.
Um, okay, here we go. An epic graphic novel of Hollywood in the early days of the Blacklist. The Fade Out tracks the murder of an up and coming starlet from studio backlots to the gutters of downtown Los Angeles, as shell shocked frontman Charlie Parrish is caught between his own dying sense of morality and his best friend's righteous sense of justice. A
Yeah.
picture perfect recreation of a lost era. The Fade Out is an instant classic from bestseller team Ed Brubaker and Phillips, who are joined by acclaimed colorist Elizabeth Breitweiser.
Uh,
But man, that's like just checking all the tropes, right? You go
yeah.
from studio backlots to the gutters of
Mm-hmm.
LA,
Mm-hmm.
the shell shocked Charlie Parrish,
Mm-hmm.
his own dying sense of morality, his best
Yeah.
friend's righteous sense of justice.
Yeah.
It's like,
But,
yep, there's all the
yeah.
necessary cast members.
Well. You also forgot the dead girl. Important cast
And
member.
the dead girl, yeah, right.
Yeah. There's a murder. We got the blacklist hanging over and HUAC hanging over all of this. Even the cover for the complete collection, because all of them, they all have, this compendium has a new artwork by Sean Phillips. Even seeing Hollywoodland across the hills there,
Right.
letting you know when this is, and kind of what they're feeling about it. So, but yeah, this is just a really, really cool murder mystery book. I think if you like things like LA Confidential or The Black Dahlia or anything set.
But hear me out. Listen to
If you like The Rocketeer, I think you'll like this, just because if you like The Rocketeer, then you're clearly going to be friends with Mike and I, because The Rocketeer rules. I don't know if you've seen
it's
it lately.
great. I
You
have
seen it?
not. No, I haven't seen
I
it since
believe
the '90s, but it's basically burned into my brain.
it's on. I think it's on Disney Plus. It's
Ooh.
there. Like, just fired up. You know what? Still rules. Still absolutely incredible. But yeah, if you like stories from this time period, and the fact that it's so prevalent even now in pop culture, that it is like an instant recall kind of era, that you can mention this place and everyone knows what you're talking about, the vibe, the aesthetic, the look, everything about it. This is
But
the book I think you're going to dig.
let me just compare that to issue one synopsis, which came out in the solicits and then with
Yeah.
issue one, because I think it was written in the style of the book to some extent. Like, it does not give you the information that the complete collection one does, but it starts off with Hollywood, 1948. A noir film stuck in endless reshoots, a writer plagued with nightmares from the war, and a dangerous secret. And an up and coming starlet's suspicious death, and a maniacal studio mogul and his security chief who will do anything to keep the cameras rolling before post war boom days come crashing down.
I mean,
Doesn't that sound like it's a Hollywood pitch from that era?
yes, that is, which has. I mean, that is. I mean, the
Oh,
only thing missing
Hollywood,
there.
1948.
I was saying, the
Like,
only thing
that's
missing
totally what it is.
is Dateline Hollywood.
Yes,
Hollywood.
right.
But that would be a news bulletin, or that would be the poster tagline. Because I think what's interesting then, if you then read the solicitations for every other issue going forward after that, they're not written the same way.
Right.
They're not written in that style. They're not written in that specific tone. So I agree entirely that was done intentionally to be like, we're really trying to put out the vibe of what this book is here. So I'm glad you covered that as well, because you're right. When you read that, you hear that in Jim LaFontaine's voice. You hear it in
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
in that movie trailer voice.
Which is interesting because eventually, after the second issue, the whole synopsis is questions,
Yeah.
like hinting very heavily at like this is a mystery, and after that, it's basically like
I
the
think they dropped
synopses
quotations.
end up
Yeah.
being like, check out all the back matter. Like
Yeah.
it's a great value for $3.99, which is kind of it $3.50 or whatever the book cost, cover price. Seemed like the they moved less from like selling you on the book, because in a serialized thing like this, issue 3 is not the entry point. You can't pick
Yeah.
up new readers there. They have to go back to 1.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what you're trying to do is convince people who got 1 and liked it to keep buying it instead of
Yeah.
trade waiting. And so it's like, look at all this extra stuff you're going to get. Um, like literally issue 3 is new crime noir masterpiece is just getting started. Remember, every month the Fade Out has exclusive back page articles that are only available in the single issues,
Mhm.
which I would question whether that's true after the complete collection or not, but it may still be true.
I think it is true. I think that that stuff is only reprinted there. So, and then after that, they still go into, but it ends up being like a sentence, like, Charlie and so team up with this to look into that, and it's like, okay,
Right.
well, like they become like almost like the most boring synopses on like your TV guide or something. They're
Yeah.
like, you read that and it's so generic almost. But yeah, at that point, I think you're bought in. If you're reading this book, at that point, you're already going to be in for the story that they're telling, for the mystery that's going on, for the characters that are there, because that's the stuff that Brubaker and Phillips do so well. Yeah, I'm really looking forward into this. We've probably mentioned more often than not that while I like Jeff Lemire a lot, Lemire is Mike's favorite comic creator of all time, and Mike is always looking to do a Lemire book in some way or another, shape or form on this show. I don't push Brubaker and Phillips as much in terms of wanting to talk about them on the show. So I'm glad we're jumping back into this book, because this one is, in a lot of ways, I think it is a little different than some of the other books that they have done, because of the very specific time period that they're working in. That they're going for maybe less of a universalist vibe, and then they're really pinpointing one time, one place, one era, saying we're telling a story right here. So that's a cool thing to go into, and I'm looking forward to getting into it, because this is a good one.
Yeah, it's a classic. All right. Well, pick a copy up. You can find it anywhere. I'm certain Hoopla libraries have it,
Yeah.
but the complete edition, I'm going to guess, is like $35, which is a steal for, 12 issues like that, 12 oversized issues like this.
Yeah. And you can
so just grab a copy.
You can also probably, if you want to find this in individual trades, you can probably still find them. If you want to go digging for the single issues, which we always endorse, you can probably find them too, either at a comic shop, at a used comic shop. Like, you can find this book in any number, and just about any way it's been printed, you can still find it.
Good grief. Okay, $24.99 by the way on the Image website for the complete collection. $20 new on Amazon.
Yeah. So if you get one of the deluxe hardcover or the complete the compendium, next week again we're just covering volume 1, which is the first 4 issues, and we'll be going 4 at a time. And they designed their arcs that way in the story, so it isn't like it's going to stop after 4 issues. They wrote it and published it with the idea that it's 4, 4, 4 to tell their whole story. So yeah, volume 1, issues 1 through 4 for next week. However you can find this book in any of the multitude of ways that are available to you.
All right, we will see you next week for volume 1.
Peace.